Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars universe seems to be quite expansive, not just with their new Star Wars comics, books, novels, and video games, but also, let's not forget about the new Star Wars TV shows, movies that are currently in the works, as well as other handful of projects being helmed by both FAVREAU, Filoni, and Lucas to really propel things in a better path, to really regain the lost fans that walked away from either A, the sequel trilogy, or B, after Gina Carano got fired by Kathleen Kennedy. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the new universe at hand is that given that FAVREAU and Filoni are taking the highlights from Legends, we're talking about the big moments from installments like the Thrawn trilogy, the new Jedi Order books, Shadows of the Empire, and a whole lot more that's going to be thrown into the canon, is really pretty much their endgame at this point, to really kind of give the fans a brand new take on the franchise. Now, given that, of course, there's been a couple of speed bumps in the process. One of the biggest ones, I believe, that a lot of fans had a lot of issues with was, of course, the Book of Boba Fett series, alright? Now, I get it, some fans love the series through and through, and that's perfectly fine and okay. I myself found myself to be half and half with the show. It had its moments, obviously, with Luke, Ahsoka, Din Djarin, and Grogu, to the point where I have to second guess myself sometimes and say, wait, that wasn't from Mando Season 2, that was from the Book of Boba Fett. You know, you always think to yourself about those scenes with Luke and all of them, and you kind of forget that it was actually in the Boba Fett show. So, moving ahead from all of this, with the Kenobi series released and a thing of the past that caused fan criticism and backlash, Disney executives have been regrouping on plans to create a Kenobi Season 2 that will be treated as a soft reboot for the Star Wars fandom. Now, it's noted that FAVREAU and Filoni are a part of the new Kenobi Reboot and are pulling unused storyboards from Beatty's trilogy that was meant to be used for the Kenobi movies, and of course how it involves the continuation of the battle between both Mace Windu and Darth Vader. Now, the illustration entails after their confrontation took place on a large bridge after it collapsed, as we discussed in the last one. Both Mace Windu and Vader come face to face again at the bottom of the mysterious world. Both Mace and Vader are said to be in ankle-deep water, a very shallow swamp, so to speak, that looks near similar to Dagobah. Now, the storyboard entails a moment in which Mace Windu pulls back his hood, and in this exact moment, where he then takes a moment to breathe in and uses the Force Repulse technique that creates a shockwave between both Vader and Mace. This ability is said to have dissipated all of the water surrounding Mace and Vader, so that they can actually fight at full speed and effectively as well. I want to pause here quickly for a second before we get to the real exciting stuff. This is a very interesting sequence and/or move by Mace Windu that Stuart Beatty was going to do in the Kenobi trilogy. So imagine both Mace and Vader in, like I say, ankle-deep water in this weird world that's very Dagobah-like. He uses this new ability called Force Repulse. Starkiller did it, Luke did it in the Battlefront video games apparently as well, right? You guys may recall that if you have seen or played the video games. And in this moment, he uses that ability to actually completely disintegrate all the water around him and Vader. Very interesting move, and visually I can only imagine. Now, with that being said too, one moment involves Vader getting very defensive after Mace Windu reveals that he knows who he is after what he told him on the bridge. Vader told Mace initially that he thought Mace had died after Palpatine killed him. This is how Mace Windu actually knows and figures it out that Vader is Anakin. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is far better than how they established the whole Reva thing, knowing that Anakin is Vader. This makes a lot of sense and actually connects to what we already know in Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith, who was there that witnessed the death of Palpatine, or should I say the death of Mace Windu by the hands of Palpatine? It was no other than just Anakin Skywalker. It just fits perfectly. Beatty knew what he was going to do. He knew that this was going to be a perfect way to kind of just attach it to Revenge of the Sith. And after all, Beatty openly stated, this is by the way the original writer of the Kenobi project, he openly stated that he wanted to make Kenobi a real sequel to Revenge of the Sith, like literally in a sense where it's going to have all these different connections to what we already saw and know about in the prequel trilogy movies. And this by far is the greatest example of what he could have done that is now thankfully being resurrected by FAVREAU and Filoni. Now, the scene involves a very fast-paced saber duel between the two. Mace eventually and surprisingly cuts and dismembers Vader's arm during the fight sequence, which is said to be poetic since Anakin severed Windu's arm in Episode 3. This was an idea by Stuart Beatty from the comics that is being implemented into the new Star Wars canon for the Kenobi Reboot. For now, this is just one of the storyboards finalized for the script of Kenobi Season 2, and how FAVREAU and Filoni are salvaging over 500 storyboards from the entirety of the Kenobi trilogy to be used in the Kenobi soft reboot. I want to touch on this quick before I get to the next part, because this is probably one of the best examples of it's like poetry, it rhymes in the Star Wars universe. The fact that Beatty had a moment where Mace Windu, of all people, gets back at Anakin Skywalker by taking off his arm, and the same one no less, is so poetic and makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but in a lot of comics out there, alright, a lot of which, you know, were in Legends, a lot of others, of course, were discontinued or just not approved by George Lucas at the time in the 90s and the early 2000s, etc. There were a lot of moments where Vader loses his arm again that's replaced with another mechanical one. So this is a very, very interesting thing to think about. The fact that this is all illustrated and finalized now by FAVREAU and Filoni, and they're picking things up by Stuart Beatty. I cannot wait to see exactly how this is going to be implemented into the Star Wars world, and visually speaking, how it's going to be done. Now, the big plan that Disney executives have is that they want to make this Kenobi reboot very cinematic, very movie-like. You guys may recall that if you looked at the Kenobi series that debuted back in May, it kind of had a lower budget feel many times, and I think a lot of that had to do with them strictly shooting, for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, only in studio. So they heavily relied on green screen, they heavily relied on their new technology provided by ILM, where they have that massive screen where the actors can just see what they're actually interacting with, and that's great and all, I like that, but that should be used sparingly. I think that should definitely be used sparingly. So this is a big step up, and I'm really thankful that Disney is actually coming to their senses. So anyways, guys, you know, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.